Section 15b, the doctrine of no soul, Anatta, continued. The second reason is that the Buddha denied categorically in unequivocal terms in more than one place the existence of Atman, soul, self, or ego within man or without, or anywhere else in the universe. Let us take some examples. In the Dhammapada, there are 3 verses extremely important and essential in the Buddha's teaching. They are verses 277, 278, and 279. The first 2 verses say, all conditioned things are impermanent, and all conditioned things are dukkha. The third verse says, all dhammas are without self. Here, it should be carefully observed that in the first 2 verses, the word conditioned things or samkhara is used. But in its place, in the third verse, the word dhamma is used. Why didn't the third verse use the word samkhara as the previous 2 verses, and why did it use the term dhamma instead? Here lies the crux of the whole matter. The term samkhara denotes the 5 aggregates, all conditioned, interdependent, relative things and states, both physical and mental. If the third verse said, all samkhara are without self, then one might think that although conditioned things are without self, yet there may be a self outside conditioned things, outside the 5 aggregates. It is in order to avoid misunderstanding that the term Dhamma is used in the third verse. The term Dhamma is much wider than Samkhara. There is no term in Buddhist terminology wider than Dhamma. It includes not only the conditioned things and states, but also the non-conditioned, the absolute nirvana. There is nothing in the universe or outside, good or bad, conditioned or non-conditioned, relative or absolute, which is not included in this term. Therefore, it is quite clear that, according to this statement, all dhammas are without self. There is no self, no Atman, not only in the 5 aggregates, but nowhere else too outside them or apart from them. This means, according to the Theravada teaching, that there is no self either in the individual or in dhammas. The Mahayana Buddhist philosophy maintains exactly the same position without the slightest difference. On this point, putting emphasis on Dharma Nairatmiya as well as on the Pudgala Nairatmiya. In the Alagadupama Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, addressing his disciples, the Buddha said, O bhikkhus, accept a soul theory in the acceptance of which there would not arise grief, lamentation, suffering, distress, and tribulation. But do you see, O bhikkhus, such a soul theory in the acceptance of which there would not arise grief, lamentation, suffering, distress, and tribulation? Certainly not, sir. Good, O bhikkhus. I, too, O bhikkhus, do not see a soul theory in acceptance of which there would not arise grief, lamentation, suffering, distress, and tribulation. If there had been any soul theory which the Buddha had accepted, he would certainly have explained it here, because he asked the bhikkhus to accept that soul theory which did not produce suffering. But in the Buddha's view, there is no such soul theory, and any soul theory, whatever it may be, however subtle and sublime, is false and imaginary, creating all kinds of problems, producing in its train grief, lamentation, suffering, distress, tribulation, and trouble. Continuing the discourse, the Buddha said in the same sutta, O bhikkhus, when neither self nor anything pertaining to self can truly and really be found in this speculative view, the universe is the Atman or soul. I shall be that after death, permanent, abiding, everlasting, unchanging, and I shall exist as such for eternity. It is not wholly and completely foolish. Here, the Buddha explicitly states that an Atman, or soul, or self, is nowhere to be found in reality, and it is foolish to believe that there is such a thing. Those who seek a self in the Buddha's teachings quote a few examples which they first translate wrongly and then misinterpret. One of them is the well-known line, Atta hi attano natto, from the Dhammapada, verse 160, which is translated as self is the Lord of self, and then interpreted to mean that the big self is the Lord of the small self. First of all, this translation is incorrect. Atta here does not mean self in the sense of soul. In Pali, the word atta is generally used as a reflexive or indefinite pronoun, except in a few cases where it specifically and philosophically refers to the soul theory, as we have seen above. But in general usage, as in the 12th chapter of the Dhammapada where this line occurs, and in many other places, it is used as a reflexive or indefinite pronoun meaning myself, yourself, himself, one, oneself, etc. Next, the word natto does not mean Lord, but refuge, support, help, protection. Therefore, atta hi attano natto really means one is one's own refuge, or one is one's own help or support. It has nothing to do with any metaphysical soul or self. It simply means that you have to rely on yourself and not on others.